Hi YouTube, thanks for joining in. Just to show perhaps another dimension of my life, some of you I will have mentioned before in other videos that I work in the European institutions. Now, whether you know anything about or give a damn about anything about the EU or European institutions, it's always good to learn something, I hope. Anyway, this is a very short and sweet video to show the history of ascension, evolution of the European Union, but seen through the eyes of colleagues that I come in contact with a lot. The unseen heroes, I think, of the institutions, and without whom it couldn't function. The interpreters. Lost in translation, you say. The dual function of the video is to give a short resume of the history of the European Union since 1957, and a little shout out to the interpreters. So these are some of the interpreters for the EU. They are to be found at the Directorate General, or DG, for interpretation. Every day in Brussels there are between 50 and 60 meetings for which they provide interpretation. There is a staff of 500 to draw upon, plus several thousand freelancers, of whom a good 300 will be recruited on any one day. In its most basic form, the job consists of interpreting for two people using two languages. The interpretation can be provided directly in a whisper, but if the group is bigger, then they take notes while the person is speaking and then provide what is known as consecutive interpretation. In its most complex form, the job involves working as part of a team in simultaneous interpretation. Here they may be working not in 2, but in 23 languages. I doubt many of the EU founding fathers could possibly have imagined an evolution on this scale. It all started in a relatively simple way, with 6 nations, 4 languages and a handful of interpreters. The first step on the road was the Paris Treaty in 1952, which created the High Authority for Steel and Coal. Then in 1956, meeting in Venice, the foreign ministers of the 6 decided to set up an intergovernmental conference to draft the text of what was to become the Rome Treaty. As you see in this meeting, it was just served by just 2 interpreters. Belgium offered to host this conference, and so it was that the Chateau Val de Chaise became the scene of a marathon that was to run for 10 months. Interpreting and interpretation was indispensable for French and German, and this was provided by just 6 interpreters working in conditions which seem primitive indeed by today's standards. Nothing could have been more ceremonial than the signing of the Treaty of Rome in March 1957. There were speeches and of course interpretation in the language of every member state. This was perceived as a vital aspect of equality between nations, and the principle was to be enshrined in the first council meeting of 1958. But for this lofty principle to be put into practice, it was essential for this embryonic language service to expand. And since candidates were hard to find, there began an in-house training scheme by staff interpreters which provided a reliable source of recruitment. But if it was difficult then in the 1960s to find qualified interpreters, imagine the challenge that lay ahead as the family expanded. In 1973, Denmark, Ireland and the United Kingdom joined the then EEC, bringing with them Danish and English. There were now 9 member states and 6 official languages. In 1981, the Hellenic Republic joined the community. By this stage, the Commission was sending interpreters out to universities in the member states to help train and recruit young talent, for example, Madrid and Lisbon, because another accession was on the horizon. And so it was, in 1986, Spain and Portugal joined the community. A further 2 languages had to be catered for as of 1995, when Austria, Finland and Sweden joined the community. Then in 2004 came the massive accession of 10 countries: the Czech Republic, Cyprus, Estonia, Hungary, Latvia, Lithuania, Malta, Poland, Slovakia and Slovenia. And in 2007, the Union was joined by Bulgaria and Romania, bringing the grand total to 27 member states and including Irish or Gaelic, 23 official languages. And how have the interpreters faced up to the challenge? Well, firstly, by helping the candidate countries train interpreters and then recruiting them. Secondly, by encouraging staff interpreters to learn new languages. With a mixture of both, it became possible to run a meeting in a great many languages. Much of the work is done directly, but two-way interpretation and relay are necessary. For example, this Polish interpreter may work 2 ways. He will interpret into Polish for his delegate, and when the delegate speaks, then the interpreter will put the speech into English. This enabling all the other colleagues in the team to relay into their own language. So it can be done, as long as the human resources are available, and the premises. The architecture of such buildings is a challenge in itself. It has been suggested in Council to opt for a more remote interpretation. Under this option, the team would work from screens at a separate location and so release much needed space in the meeting room itself. Technically speaking, this can be done, but it is costly, and perhaps more importantly, most interpreters feel it is a dehumanizing experience which distracts from their ability to communicate. As a rule of thumb, priority is given to elected representatives, ministerial councils, or official visits where a full team of interpreters is provided. So it's been 54 years since it all began. The initial handful of interpreters has grown into the biggest service in the world. And since the EU institutions are committed to multilingualism, that is how business will continue. Unless or until there is a change of heart, if that should ever happen.